Hi guys, Jay Nelson here once again, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the problem with salaries when it comes to people coming to Japan, specifically English teachers, because that's what I know best. So it is no secret that even now in 2026, after years of inflation, the cost of living getting tougher and tougher, the salaries, especially for new English teachers, is constantly being squeezed. When I came to Japan 13 years ago, I was paid 240,000 yen a month, which wasn't too bad considering I only worked about 5 hours a day, and the world was very different back then. Now, if you look at companies hiring people to move to Japan, you will see that salaries are maybe described as 2 to 2.2 million yen. That can look quite enticing if you don't fully understand how Japanese currency works. 2.2 million might sound like a lot of zeros, a lot of yen. However, that only translates to about $15,000 a year. If you're from the UK, you're talking 10 to 11,000 pounds a year to come to Japan to teach English. Now, I do have to put a disclaimer that it is Japanese yen because you are working and living in Japan. However, we cannot use the excuse that it is relative to living in Japan anymore because Japan is also seeing constant inflation, prices rising, and a lot of different things just constantly getting more and more expensive. That 2.2 million yen could have been fine 13 years ago. In 2026, however, it just doesn't cut it. Despite all that, however, the number of English teachers isn't going down. In fact, if I just give a quick Google search, the AI overview for Google, which might not be perfect, of course, says that there are over 18,000 ALTs. Now, for those who don't know, an ALT is an assistant language teacher. You go to public schools in Japan, whether it be public elementary, junior high school, sometimes they might send you into kindergartens. That's just 18,000 ALTs. That doesn't even include the people working in eikaiwas, in international preschools, all that kind of stuff. You can probably double that, to be honest with you. If we're thinking 30,000 plus English teachers here in Japan, who is willingly taking those salaries? Now, I have seen many posts on Reddit, despite the fact that everyone knows that the salaries are so low, people asking, which company should I go for? Should I go for Heart? Should I go for Eon? Should I go for GABA? People still are drawn to Japan because Japan is Japan. It still is very desired in terms of a nice place to live, a safe place to live. Of course, I live in Japan, so of course I love Japan, but I would not say it's safe, especially if you are a woman or a child. And also, the rules around visas are constantly changing, so adding little bits of instability every few months nowadays. Recently, they just announced that the one-year visa is going to go up to 30,000 yen per renewal, which is a big hit considering it was about 6,000 before. If you have a family with kids also with you, that could be the tipping point. That being said, who is coming to Japan? Now, when I came to Japan 13 years ago, most of the English teachers were the classic English teacher looking things. I'm not saying there is a person who should be an English teacher. I'm just going off what the stereotype might be. A British person, an American person, a Canadian person, Australian person, many Filipinos as well. That is kind of what people used to imagine when they think of ALTs, English teachers, in Japan. And when I first came here, that was basically the team that we had, always. A mix of basically like white British, American, African American, all those kinds of people mixed together. Now, that has changed a lot. Now, I'm not saying whether this is good or bad, I'm simply stating how it's changed. What I have noticed through Reddit, through LinkedIn, through talking to my friends who work in these kind of places, now most of the people coming into Japan are Indians, Bangladeshis, people from Africa, maybe Kenya, Nigeria, people who come from much lower economic country, much weaker economic countries in terms of salaries for just regular people and moving to Japan. Something interesting that I noticed over the past couple of days when I was just going through my messages on LinkedIn is that I was receiving messages asking, how can I move to Japan? From people who had very nice sounding jobs, engineers, B2B sales, all those kind of things, project managers, directors of companies. These people should be people who earn good salaries no matter what country they're in. However, if you're in one of these weaker economic countries, even a lower English teacher salary in Japan still seems more inviting than what they had back home, even though the role that they had back home might have been more of a proper professional role, depending on your meaning of the word professional. Of course, if you are good at teaching English, who cares, right? However, this is one of the issues with the English teaching system going forward, is now that we have many people coming to accept lower paid work, which means if you are hoping to come to Japan and earn a good salary, you're basically shit out of luck because they are never going to increase that. I made a video a few months ago about how some ALTs in Western Japan, a group of British, Canadian, American people, protested and successfully were able to get a bit of a pay rise and a bit of a better bonus. But that did take a protest, and it doesn't mean that they are going to be kept in their contract when the New Year's changes. If their company lose the contracts with their local governments, it doesn't matter if they got a pay rise, they could be kicked out anyway. It's basically become a race to the bottom, and it's not going to get better. It's not like the government is suddenly going to be giving more money to local governments to pay for their English because they're only going to these schools once a week or so. And Japan's rating on the World Global Index for English is very low. So it's not as if they're getting a lot for their investment in the first place. The incentive isn't really there. Who still wants to come to Japan in 2026? I would say if you are hoping to come to Japan, you need a plan. You are not going to just be thinking about coming to Japan as an English teacher. You have to think about what's coming after that. You need to learn Japanese before you come here. You need to have savings from your own country before you come here. You need those safety nets and those tools to get you somewhere different. Working as an English teacher can still be your gateway to getting a good job in Japan, but you might have to eat shit before you do so. You might have to put up with crap for a year or so just so you can smoothly transition into something else. As visa renewals get more strict, as things get more expensive, who knows what the English teaching industry will even look like in a few years. They might just decide, we are not going to give visas to English teachers anymore because we're not really seeing any results. Those are just a few of my thoughts on the English teaching industry in Japan and how salaries are not really going to get better. As I said, you've got to learn Japanese. You've got to have skills other than teaching English before you come here if you're hoping to make a career for yourself. And if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, please leave them down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.